Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project, and thank you for tuning in. Once again, I have the most fascinating and interesting and inspiring guest with me today. Her name is Marcy Langlois. She is a trauma-informed coach who helps people transcend their pain into power, heal their trauma and their nervous system to recover for good. Marcy is also a trauma survivor herself, a chronic illness warrior, and is over 20 years into her journey of sobriety. She now guides others to live beyond their limits through her coaching services and other resources. Marcy, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Cheryl. What a pleasure and honor, honestly. Thank you.
You are welcome. It's just an honor to have you. I love talking to my warriors. It's just, everybody's a warrior in some area or another, whether they realize it or not. So, what I'm going to do, Marcy, is just turn it over for you to you right now and just share with us because I've read your bio, I know your history, I know what you went through to get to where you are right now, but just share your story with the listeners.
Yeah, sure, of course. So, really my story starts the day that I was born. That it became interesting the moment I came out into the world. I was born with a cleft lip and palate, and I was born in 1976. So at that time, no one knew I was coming into the world the way I was coming in. And so that began the road of need for medical care immediately. And I spent the first 7 days of my life hospitalized. And I share that part of the story because it's really important to share that because that is the beginning of my trauma. And in the first 90 days that we're alive, our nervous system is actually being wired for safety and security or for fight, flight, trauma, not safe. And so the first 7 days of my life, my body was receiving these constant messages of, we're not safe. It's not okay. And I had my first surgery when I was 10 weeks old, and my last one when I was 17
Oh,
and 23 total in all, uh, that spanned over that part of my life. And things were, things were always chaotic in my life. My father was an active alcoholic.
mhm.
We didn't have much in the way of resources at all. At times, we had no running water and no electricity, and things were always interesting, to say the least. So now we have this baby, me, and the family who needs all of this stuff, and my home is not stable to begin with. So, again, that created more trauma and more wiring in my nervous system that things were not okay. So as I was growing up and around, school age is when I really started to understand that I was very different. I grew up in a
Mhm.
really small town in Vermont, and I
Mhm.
didn't know I was surrounded by my family, and so pretty much non-judgmental about my appearance. But when I went to school, the kids there let me know that I was definitely different.
Mm.
And I started getting bullied and teased, and my mom did everything she could, went in and met with the class and answered all the questions, did all the stuff. But kids are kids, and they're just honest, and what they see is what they say. And I looked very different than I look today. And I
Mhm.
also spoke very different.
Mhm.
So, that was interesting as a youngster. But what happened is I started acquiring these beliefs about who I was and why I was not okay.
Mhm.
Right. I was full of shame. I didn't know how to be me. I just wanted to be somebody that you wanted me to be because
Mhm.
I wanted your acceptance and approval.
Mhm.
And so those fundamental beliefs started to really shape who I became. And as the school years went on, it was shortly after I started school. I don't know. I was maybe kindergarten, first, second grade. I can't tell you exactly, but I knew for sure I was outside the societal norm in terms of my sexual orientation.
Mhm.
And I didn't know you called it being a lesbian at that time. I
Mhm.
had never seen people who were with the same sex. I had no diversity in my background. And so I just thought, okay, I'm just going to shove this down. And if I ignore it and I pray, because I was brought up in a really Catholic family and went to a Catholic school,
Mhm.
that this is going to go away, right? Like, I
Mhm.
can't have to deal with this too. And so for a long time, I believed if I just wasn't me and I could
Mhm.
be somebody else, then people would love and accept me. And that didn't work out so well. What that did is it created this spiral of shame that I lived in constantly about who I was, the way I looked, the way I spoke, who I was attracted to, where I came from, what my home life looked like. It was just one thing after another.
Mhm.
And so in middle school, I started experimenting with drinking.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was easy to find. Alcohol was everywhere around me.
Mhm.
And I started drinking in middle school. And by high school, I really took the plunge and was drinking very regularly in high school. And as things were sort of wrapping up and going into my senior year, I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Is like I applied to college, I got accepted to college. My surgeries were starting to wrap up, which had been excruciating throughout
Mm.
high school. I had my jaws broke twice in a row.
Oh.
And yeah, it's a doozy. And so I was like, okay, I'm moving on, right? Like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and there's gonna be something positive here around the corner for me if I can just hang in there. And
Mhm.
my senior year, I was on my way to my after school job, and I got in a really devastating car accident. And I don't need to get into all the details today, but what's important to know is that 3 people lost their lives that day. And I hit that car. I wasn't found legally responsible for it in any way. The other person never saw me, and he came into my lane of traffic.
Oh.
I wasn't drinking, I wasn't using drugs. I had no fault whatsoever.
Mhm.
And but nevertheless, I had already all that other trauma
Mhm.
that had not been dealt with, that had not been processed in any way. And now you add this catastrophic event on top of it. And I had no way of knowing how to deal with it.
Mhm.
And the only way I knew was to drink and drug. It was
Mhm.
the only thing that allowed me literally to stay alive,
Mhm.
because every day I wanted to have that be my last day.
Mhm.
Because I felt responsible, and I
Mhm.
felt, the first thing I would say to myself when I woke up in the morning is, you've killed 3 people and
Oh.
you don't
Oh.
deserve anything. Right. And not the air that you breathe, nothing, no one's love, no one's affection, nothing. And so that that being the belief system that I adopted again,
Mhm.
right, really was so devastating for me, right?
Mhm.
And just kept me in the throes of addiction and substance abuse. And I did that for the next 10 years until I turned 27 years old. And during that 10-year period, I finally came out to my family that I am a lesbian. And I had a couple of relationships, just two.
Mhm.
The second one is my wife now.
Mhm.
And so she had a daughter, a biological daughter. And we raised her together. Brianna was 8 years old when I came into her life, and her father was pretty absent from her life. And so I became the other parent, and it became really clear to me pretty quickly that I was doing exactly the same thing to her that had been done to me.
Mhm.
It was so clear that I was on my way back to the bar one day, and I realized, oh my God, like this is what my dad used to do to me. He'd pick me up from school and he'd bring me to the bar with him. And I literally up from school and I was bringing her to the bar with me.
Oh.
And doing this. And that was 21 years ago. And I've never taken a drink since then. And I decided to change my life.
Mhm.
And now you might be thinking, yay, because that's what I thought.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, I've arrived, right? 5 days and for a moment the days before. But no, that was really the beginning of the next phase of healing and facing my past. Because see, what happened is when I took the drugs and alcohol away, my body was like, oh, now you're here. We're going to
Mhm.
show you what's really going on.
Mhm. If I can, I have a couple of questions that I just want to go back. First of all, when you talk about your family life, did you have any siblings, or were you an only child?
Yeah, I have one older brother. He's 19 months older than I am.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I love the fact that you brought up the development of the nervous system, even, when we're born as newborn babies. And I think, even probably in utero, we're of course having some kind of development there as well. But
Totally.
the importance of the nervous system and the pathways that are being established that early in life, especially with the feeling of being unsafe and something wasn't right, that intuitively we know because we just know.
Hmm.
And then the other thing
Yes.
is, I really have to talk about how barbaric the surgery sounds.
Oh, yeah. It was, yeah. It one after the other like that. It was, yes. I mean,
Is
you
it
have to think your face is, your mouth, your teeth, your
yeah.
nose, your palate, yeah, all the way into your eustachian tubes in your ears. All of this is all deformed
Uh-huh.
internally and externally.
Uh-huh.
So, in order for things to work correctly, to breathe correctly, lots of problems with hearing, ear infections, chronic ear infections. I mean, I had an 11 millimeter underbite, um 11 millimeters, right? I mean, that is huge. It is literally like about that big, right?
Wow.
That my bottom jaw jut out. So to push it back, pull the top one forward, right, is
So I just have to ask, is that typical, or did you just have like a really severe cleft palate?
everybody that is born with one is different. You
Uh-huh.
know what I'm saying? And so they never said like yours is more severe than someone else's or yours is actually, really easy to fix.
Mm-hmm.
They never gave me any feedback about that. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm. And so then I want to go back to, as you're in school and, you know that now, you're different just because of the way.
I'm having trouble here. I can't hear you.
What about now?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay. So, yeah, and you went out a little bit too, in and out, but yeah, we're good.
Hold on one second.
Okay.
Just gonna unplug this. Can you hear me okay if I talk like this?
Uh-huh.
Okay, perfect. I unplugged my other microphone. Sorry about that.
No problem. So we talked about that sense of shame that you felt.
Yes.
And with shame has its other evil cousin, guilt, as well.
Mm,
And then that was just compounded by the car accident. And it was almost like it's, compounding trauma. I don't know a whole lot about, I haven't studied trauma except for my own personal experiences. But so it kind of
mhm.
took things into overdrive.
Yeah, yeah, right. Shame is we feel terrible about who we are and what we are, right?
Hmm.
And guilt is we feel terrible and ashamed for what we've done, right?
Hmm.
So yes, it's
Hmm.
I have that all through my life, right?
Hmm.
They're so interconnected
Hmm.
throughout my life. It's unbelievable. And yes, I do have complex PTSD,
Mhm.
uh, which is basically one thing after another. You know, their trauma never ends, it just
Mhm.
continues.
And that brings me to another question. Along the way in your life, before you kind of had the epiphany at the age of 27, you needed to change, did anybody recognize that, hey, maybe you need some help?
Yeah, my mom brought me to therapy when I was a freshman in high school. We lost three kids in our school. One was a very close friend of mine. Um, and my brother lost two of his friends in a car accident also. And they passed away within 19 days of each other. And
Oh,
that just, yeah, that just wrecked me. I mean, you have to imagine our town is 250 people,
oh.
right? So when this kind of stuff happens, it's so devastating. And
Mhm.
so I went to therapy as a freshman to deal with that. And but I was so already traumatized by that time in my life, and I had no way of really being able to express how I felt. That
Mhm.
this woman was as helpful as she could be at that time,
Mhm.
but my inability to be able to communicate was so lackluster, you know what I mean? And so, and then after my car accident, my own car accident, my mom brought me to therapy the next
Mhm.
day because they're like she has to go to therapy
Yeah.
immediately, right? Like, and she brought me the next day, and I went and I sat on the couch and I didn't say one word. And
Oh.
I mean, I was in shock. I
Mhm.
mean, right. The body literally knows exactly what to do
Mhm.
to allow you to survive through something
Mhm.
like that. And you literally cannot function. I mean,
Mhm.
I couldn't even think.
So were you dissociated? Dissociating?
Yeah, I mean, shock is probably the best word to use, and I
Mhm.
was fully disassociated also, but
Mhm.
shock for sure because there is a chemical thing that goes on in your body and in your brain that
Mhm.
to protect you because you cannot absorb all of that information at one time from what has just happened.
Mhm.
You would literally die. The nervous
Mhm.
system would become so overwhelmed, it would
Mhm.
literally just fritz out.
Mhm. And once again, I'm so happy that you talk about the nervous system because we do talk about it a lot on the show.
Oh, good.
I'm a recovering physical therapist, and I'm also a
Uh,
Feldenkrais practitioner, which deals, very
yeah.
with the nervous system and accessing
Yes.
it in a gentle way through movement. So yeah, so that's like, ooh, she's, just speaking my language. I love that. So I'm so glad you keep going back to the nervous system because I think the more that we understand it and how it works, then that gives us some tools that we can recognize when things aren't going right in our minds and our
Th
bodies.
yes. The nervous system is the basis.
Mhm.
Nothing in the body can work correctly unless the nervous system works correctly.
Mhm. And yet we mistreat it and abuse it so much with some of the things. I think we need to guard our nervous system, our thoughts, and the things that we are exposed to, kind of like a jealous lover, meaning that be careful what you're watching on TV, be careful what you're listening to on a regular basis. Make sure that you take breaks and go out into nature and just having alone time. And so that's going to segue into the next question is okay, so now you realize you're in a bar with your daughter, Brianna.
Yeah. Yeah. And I said, no more,
And
no
so what
more.
happened then?
So then after that, I decided to go to my first 12-step meeting. And that was the path that I chose for recovery. And I never drank after that day.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I was really, really clear that my life was not the way I wanted it to look. I mean, I was dying. I could not hold down water, food. My skin was gray. I
Oh.
was in very, very bad shape. And and I just knew, you know, I wasn't her biological parent. And I felt from the core of my being, she didn't ask me to be in her life, right?
Mm-hmm.
She didn't invite me in. And so she doesn't deserve this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I don't know. It made sense to me that this was the right thing to do for her, for me, for the wellness of our family, for all
Mm-hmm.
things.
Well, what a wonderful gift for you that she did come into your life.
Yeah. She's the best thing since sliced bread, literally.
Oh, I'm sure she is.
She's pretty amazing.
And I'm sure she just loves you with all her heart and soul.
She does. We had a rocky, we had
Well,
some
of
rocky
course.
times. But yeah, overall we're thick as thieves for sure.
Nice. So then when did you decide that it was time to start sharing these tools, the things that you have learned along the way that you wanted to share it with other people to help them through their life's challenges? Let's just put it to you that way.
Yeah, really, for a long time, people have said, Marcy, you need to tell your story. And so I publicly started sharing my story probably about 10 or 12 years ago. And then what happened, I have a mortgage business also. And so what happened is the business was too busy and I couldn't focus on this. And I've been battling chronic illness my entire life. And between trying to keep all the balls in the air, I just couldn't do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I focused on the mortgage business and really I switched addictions is what I did. I
Mm-hmm.
instead of drinking and drugging, I started working like a maniac. And I nearly worked myself to death. And in February of 2021, I was dying. And I ended up bedridden for 40 days. And I had mast cell activation syndrome and histamine intolerance, which are both when the immune system and the nervous system collide. And it is
Mm-hmm.
not pretty because the nervous system starts to believe that everything is out to get us. It is a predator. And so, including my own thoughts at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever I would think, I could have a full blown allergic reaction to my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's next level. And so after that, while I was laying in bed for those 40 days, I realized that when my wife would bring my phone in and I would start thinking about, am I ever going to be able to go back to my career? What are we going to do financially? Like all of these things. Then I was having tremors in my brain and throughout my body. And when she'd bring the phone in and I would start getting in those thought patterns, then the tremors would, I mean, they were just off the chart. I literally
Mm-hmm.
would just cry because I couldn't, it was so intense and so
Mm-hmm.
terrifying. And so, and what I realized is when I could sit and just be calm and present in the moment, that the tremors would go from like a 1 out of 10 to like a 5. So I started seeing directly how my thoughts
Mm-hmm.
were correlated to what was happening in my body. And so I knew for sure that all these books I had read and all these teachers I had studied that
Mm-hmm.
had said your thoughts create your reality it was true.
Mm-hmm.
But I believed it to a certain degree, but I didn't know. You know what I mean? But I
Mm-hmm.
knew then. And so I started devoting the rest of really the last 3.5 years of my life to heal my body. And I've learned how to heal my body using my mind, regulating my nervous system, and raising the frequency in my body.
Mm-hmm.
And no medicine, no supplements, no doctor, no nothing.
And all I have to say is I need to ask you this question. How empowering is that?
It's pretty much the most empowering thing that you can ever do. When you really start to understand the power of the mind
Mm,
and you harness the potential that lies there for whatever it is that you can envision in your life, whatever it is that you want to be, you anything is possible. When I
mhm,
say anything, I sincerely mean
mhm.
anything is possible.
So basically, it's the power of the mind partnering with the plasticity of the nervous system. Because our brain, our nervous system is incredibly malleable and plastique and adaptable and can change. I mean, if you've studied, obviously you're very studied a lot of neurology or neuroplasticity. But
Yep.
even this is so crazy because, physical therapy was actually my second career. And when I was in all of my physical therapy courses, I was a respiratory therapist for 20 years. And in all of my neurology courses, they would tell us that this, I call it nature's miracle, the neuroplasticity, that
Hmm.
it disappears at the age of 14. I know I'm sitting there scratching my head going, how much am I paying for this education? I mean, I knew
Wow.
because I had spent, enough time in neuro trauma units working with
Yeah.
people who had had head injuries, spinal cord injuries. So I knew intuitively that that can't be true.
Right.
And
Yeah.
now
You
it's
saw it firsthand.
absolutely, but of course, what
Yeah.
did I know? I was just a stupid student. So yeah, I mean, it's just amazing when you point out, the power of your mind and how that impacts your life because your nervous system, our brain is always listening and it's recording the messages it's receiving. It's not judging and saying, oh, this is right or wrong, true or false. It's just, okay, this must be, or just like a computer, we're going to record it. And then when you talked about, and I wrote this down because I love this predatory thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. The body's subjective. The body does not know if it's happening or if we're just thinking that it's happening or
Mm-hmm.
if it already happened. The body is literally subjective. When I say the word lemon, what happens? You
Mm-hmm.
salivate,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your toes might curl, your throat might tighten up a little bit, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking the lemon is coming, right? The body is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even have a lemon anywhere in the room,
Mm-hmm.
right? But look at how the body responded. So it's like when I think about what I did for the first, 45 years of my life, which
Mm-hmm.
was I'm not safe. I'm not okay. Everything's, I don't know when somebody is going to harm me. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I had no idea that those thoughts were in there running what was going on. And then the body's listening and creating the corresponding chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in a state of fight or flight, the body is gearing up for survival. So it's
Mm-hmm.
producing chemicals for survival, not for health and wellness.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you added that, not for health and wellness, because all of those, the chemicals, the chemical reactions, the stress response is what really, I think, is impacting our health in a way that we don't even realize. I mean, we're always told, yeah, stress kills, but I mean, it really, really does. It kills cells, it kills, neural pathways. It's just so insidious the way it works.
That's right. Because the body can't heal unless it's in the state of ease, rest and
Mm-hmm.
digest,
Mm-hmm.
parasympathetic, however you want to refer to that. But the body cannot heal unless it's in that state because the autonomic nervous system is what heals the body.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're always in that state of stress, then the body can never heal. And that's exactly what happened to me. So today I have no chronic illness. I have no autoimmune conditions. I have no nothing. I have nothing going on because I learned how to reverse all of the wiring in my brain that was wired to stress and survival by undoing that and wiring what I want.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it is literally unbelievable.
Mhm. And I want to go back to that word again, empowering, empowerment. I mean, just being able to take charge of your life like that is just, I mean, it's overwhelming at first, but it is
Mhm.
so unbelievably liberating and
Yes.
powerful.
Yes. Yes, it's everything. I used to the last like 5 years before I got really sick, I was sick like 7, 8, 9 months out of the year where I
Oh,
literally would wake up every day and felt like I had the flu and I had to run a business like that. And then all I could do is at 5 o'clock at night get back in bed because I was so exhausted from the day. And that's how I lived my life, literally. And I did this for years and years. I mean, I'm 48 years old today, and I've
oh,
never,
congratulations.
no, not today, but like as of now, I'm
I know,
48.
but still, that's such a great age. Oh my God. I'm so excited for you because 50 is magical. If you think things are going pretty well right now, wait until you hit that big 50.
Oh, good. I can't wait. I'm super stoked. I keep saying to people, people are like, oh my God, you're almost 50. I'm like, I've never felt so good in my life. Like literally, I've never been so healthy. I've never felt so good mentally. I struggled with PTSD every day. I don't have symptoms of that anymore.
Mhm,
I this is like amazing,
mhm,
amazing. And it's all because I've changed the wiring in my brain.
mhm. That's amazing. I love that, and I love hearing that, and I have just got to tell you, because my 30s were really just a nightmare, and my 40s were worse, and so all I could
Oh,
think of was if I could just make it to 50, maybe things will change, and I don't know why I thought that, but that was about the same time, as in my late 40s that I discovered both martial arts and then Feldenkrais, so it was kind of like, psh, blow talk about mind-boggling, but
yeah.
I tell you what, it was almost like when I turned 50, angels were singing. It was just amazing. And my 50s were so fantastic that when I turned 60, I was running to it with my arms open wide, going, bring it on, baby.
Yeah.
And my,
Absolutely, right?
yeah, right. And my 60s have been fantastic so far. And I'm getting toward the end of my 60s. It's coming up real fast.
Well, you look amazing. I can't
Oh,
believe that you're in your late 60s.
oh yeah. Yeah, my birthday
Good
was
for
just a few
you.
days ago. Thank you.
Oh, good for you.
Thank you. I'm 20 years older than you.
Okay, okay. Well, you look amazing.
Oh, why, thank you. I've got a filter, I
Yeah.
think, on my screen, but I'm not really sure. But anyhow, so, I'm really curious if you could, have a little time machine. And
Uh-huh.
if you could look back, like turn the clock back, maybe
Mhm,
you're okay. Like, okay, let's go back to at that time when you were 27,
mhm,
or maybe even a little bit earlier than that. If
mhm.
somebody had come up to you and said, Marcy, don't worry, it's going to be okay, and that this is where you're going to be in another 20 years, what would you have said?
There's no way I would have ever believed them. You know, yeah, I wouldn't, I was in such a dark, dark place. Yeah, I would not have believed them at all.
Mhm. So, what could you say to somebody who is listening to this right now and that they might feel that same way that you did, that it's just not possible? What would you like to say to them?
Yeah, I love it when people ask me this question. The thing is that every day for years and years, I would go to bed and I would hope that I would not wake up the next day. And I really felt that in the depths of my entire being. And all I knew is that there was this thing inside of me that I really cannot name that kept me going. That sort of like you said, if I can just make it to 50, maybe something will be better. Right. And
Mhm,
that was the same way that I kept going, is that there was a hope in me, I think really is the proper terminology, is like there was hope within me somewhere that I had made it through all of these circumstances. And by, 27, I had been through it. And so uh, I had made it. And
mhm,
why had I made it? Right? Like, that's when I started asking bigger questions in my life. Like, why was I here? Why
mhm,
didn't I die? Because there was many times I could have and should have.
mhm,
And why didn't I? Right. And why had other people lost their lives, but I
mhm,
didn't? Right. And it felt almost like sacrilegious and I don't even know what the word is, but wrong in every way to not honor the people that had passed by going on to live, right? And so for me, it's a combination of finding a purpose for my suffering,
mhm,
right? Knowing that all people suffer. We all suffer. It doesn't
mhm,
matter where you come from, what the story is around that. We all suffer. And when we accept that we all suffer and we know we're not alone in that, that alone feels empowering. It's like, oh, I'm not on this isolated journey by happenstance, right? We all are on a journey together, right? And the hope is that someday I'm going to be able to transform and transcend that pain into something that will be amazing, you know? And I think that this is the most incredible thing that has ever happened to me in my life is I used to have people tell me one day your story is going to change someone else's life. And I would say, well, that doesn't do a whole hell of a lot for me right now. Let's get real, right? And they would say all the time, no, for real, Marcy, and it's going to mean something. I had no idea that it would be my own daughter. My daughter got in a life-threatening accident with her father in a jet ski, and he was on life support for 13 days, and he ended up living. But she ran over him accidentally, and it was an ordeal. And we flew to Phoenix where they were at, where the accident was. And when I saw her at Sky Harbor Airport, I knew in that moment that I had gone through every single thing that I had gone through up until that time to be able to show up for my daughter in a way that not very many people can understand or relate. And that is exactly what she said to me. You're the only person in the whole world that understands exactly how I feel right now in this moment. And I thought to myself, I would do it all over again. I would go through every single thing that I've been through to be able to be here for her in this moment. And that's the thing about our suffering is that we don't know how that can help another person, whether it be your daughter or whoever. When you help someone else and you've made meaning and purpose out of your own suffering, there are no words for that. It makes it all worth it.
Wow, that was just absolutely beautiful. Oh, I mean, really, really, wow, very impactful. So there was one,
For,
let me see. Yeah,
for me
one other
too.
thing. Yeah, one other thing I wondered about, because when you were saying, and this was quite a while back, that, when you were, I think this might have even been before we started recording, when I was asking you if you had a book and you were talking about, coming out and telling your story, that people said you should, start sharing your story. When you did start getting on like podcasts and you did start going public and sharing your story, I mean, that's a very vulnerable position to be in.
Hmm.
And, I'm even going back on my personal experience when I started talking about mine, it was like, ooh, can I really do this? And do I really want people to know this?
Right.
So, how
Yeah.
did you wrap your head around that?
I think for me, it was all about people's response to what I was saying, the
Mm,
story that I was sharing. People would come up to me and say, "Oh my God, if you can do this, then I can overcome, whatever it is. If you quit drinking, then I can quit drinking. I've been trying and I just can't seem to get there, but you've really inspired me." And so is these kinds of responses
mhm,
that again gave meaning and purpose to what it was that I was doing and made it all feel worthwhile. Even though, yes, it's really scary. It's really intimidating
mhm,
to put yourself out there. But the other power that people don't often talk about is that when we're authentic and vulnerable, then it opens the door for others to be. And it's so powerful when we can be who we are.
mhm,
That is where the healing happens. That is where the transformation takes place, is when we are who we are. We take all the masks off.
mhm,
We're not worried about how you think of me or how you see me. It, we're just going to say, oh my God, that broke my heart, right? When
mhm,
that happened, that broke my heart.
mhm,
And there's that opening that happens when I'm vulnerable like that, then other people have the permission to do the same thing. And I can't tell you the amazing people and the amazing things that people have shared with me over the years because I've let my authenticity and my
Mhm.
vulnerability lead.
Mhm. So, Marcy, where can people find you? How could they get a hold of you? How could they work with you? So, I'm going to give you some time now just to share the links, give us that information. Of course, this is going to be in the show notes forever and ever. So, people will be able to find you. Anything that you've got coming up, anything you want to share with us would be awesome.
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate that. So I have a coaching practice, and really I like to tailor it to what people need. Um, I only work with certain people. If I don't believe that I can help you, then I certainly do not want you to waste your time or energy with me or your money. So what I do is you can visit one of the links in the show notes, and you can schedule a free call with me, and we'll hop on a call and we'll chat and we'll see if we're a good fit before you sign up for anything. But really, my coaching platform typically is a 12-week platform, and I take you all the way through from start to finish on how to transform your life in 12 weeks. And I work with you every day if that's what you need.
Hmm.
And then we have a call once a week. And in addition to that, I have some great resources on my website at
Hmm.
marcylanglois.com. You can go on there and get a free download, and literally you can start changing your life today if that's what you're looking for.
Hmm.
Um, and other than that, I'm on social media. And if you would find me and follow me at TikTok, Facebook, or YouTube, Instagram also, that would be amazing. Every day I'm on there giving out free advice and information on how to change your life, how to manage trauma, and those kinds of things. And my ideal client is really the person who's already put in time and energy and they don't know where else to go, and they're not getting the results that they're needing. They're chronically ill,
Hmm.
they're struggling with addiction or switching addictions, or they're people who have been struggling with PTSD or complex PTSD, and they just cannot live, don't know how to face the world. Like things are so difficult on the daily for them. Those are my people.
Okay, all righty. And then, this has been a wonderful conversation. I have loved talking to you. I'm so proud of you. It's just like it's
Thank
one of
you.
those stories that it's just like, yeah, it's almost like Rocky Balboa. I can do this. I want to go run up the stairs, and up and down a couple
Yes.
of times because yes, you've got the power. And basically that's what it is. It's just you're giving people such incredible tools of empowerment and confidence and courage to be able to go out in the world and be who they really truly are.
Yes. Mission accomplished.
There you
That's what I
go.
aim. That's always my aim. I'm so glad we hit the mark.
So, do you have any one like final little pearl of wisdom you want to leave with the listeners before we sign off?
Yes, I think the most important thing to tell you is that no matter how dark the day is that the sun's always going to come up the next day. And that if you always remember that the beliefs that you have create the thoughts that you think, and those thoughts that you think translate to how you feel, and your feelings will dictate what your behavior ultimately is. And then that creates the life you see.
Mhm.
And it is literally that simple and that difficult.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I love the way you said that. It is that simple and that difficult because it is.
That's right.
Thanks again for being on the show, Marcy. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Cheryl. I really appreciate our time together.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Oh my goodness, what a powerful episode. Please do share it with everyone you know, especially if you're suffering or you know somebody who's suffering. There are tools that Marcy can help you with and help you change your life and turn it around. And do remember, what we believe is what we become. So be very careful what you tell yourself and who you listen to. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.